Hey everybody, welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today is episode number 70. 70. We're 30 away from 100. Crazy, crazy times. I'm your host, Roman Zelchenko. I am an immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Laborless, which is an immigration tech startup that automates H-1B visa compliance. I'm also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency for the immigration, global mobility space, and of course, among other things, brings you this show. I'm very excited today. We are talking to an immigration technology startup co-founder out of Italy. So I was actually just in Italy for over a month, and for my first time ever, I absolutely loved it. Our guest today, I didn't get a chance to meet with him in person, unfortunately, even though it would have been a really cool kind of in-person post, or like, I don't know, post-COVID, but like hopefully towards the tail end of COVID meeting. But our guest today is Davide Lionetti, who is the co-founder of Visify. So Visify is a company and a service that assists individuals with their Italian visa process. So individuals work with Visify to figure out the best visa for them, and then they utilize the Visify service to put together all the documents that they need and prepare all the right forms. And basically, the company and their technology walk individuals through the process of getting a visa for Italy. So I'm really excited about this. This is a service that is obviously much needed around the world, and it's really, really cool to see companies in different countries really creating technology to support the immigration process. So without further ado, Davide, thank you so much for being here,
Hi.
and I really appreciate it.
Hi, Roman. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. And so you are. So where are you in Italy? Where are you based?
So, right now we are in Bari, which is where we are headquartered.
Hmm.
And I'm actually in a co working space. It's called Impact Hub Bari. And it's actually an international chain of co working spaces. And yeah, so we're headquartered here. And since a couple months after COVID, we returned back to the office into this Impact Hub co working space.
That's awesome. And what kind of? It's not just technology companies in the co-working space, I guess. It's all sorts of organizations.
I would say this co-working is likely biased towards innovation. So it's very easy to find technology-based startups and businesses in general. But there are different types of businesses. We have, for example, cartoonists. They just joined our co-working space. We have startups that are digitizing the agricultural world. We have software companies, people doing stuff in VR. So yeah, definitely many types of businesses, but probably everybody's working in some way trying to innovate.
That's awesome. That's really exciting just to have that energy around you as you're building your company and doing, and working.
Yeah.
Um, cool. So, so Davide, I want to, I have so many questions, and I'm really excited to get into, what Visify does and sort of how you guys are leveraging technology and, what it means for the industry. But as always, I always love to dive into the life of the founder, and then of course also the founding of the company, because this is sort of a family business, right? I mean, you co-founded this with your father. So I want to first, maybe even before you got into working with him on this, I want to ask, like, how did your father start in this industry, and sort of what was the background of him getting into the immigration or kind of visa space?
Yes, I'll take just a minute, Roman, to clarify on what we do, because it's a slightly different than you described.
Sure.
We basically have a digital service that helps businesses and individuals get visas, not only for Italy, but actually we mainly work for outgoing visas. So mainly for Italians at the moment, because we mainly support and serve the Italian market. We help Italians in general and people working and living in Italy get visas for other countries. We also support incoming visas, but mainly it's for other countries. And we support many types of visas and many countries. So, for example, the US, Canada, UK, maybe for not Italians, but other nationalities living here. So we provide them with a digital service that helps them first identify the required visa, and then gives them an overview of what they're going to need to do to get the visa, what documents they're going to need to provide. And we also help them throughout the procedure, making sure they highlight everything that's relevant for the visa application, so that they have the best chances of getting their visa. And yeah, as I said, we mainly work with businesses, but we also support individuals. It's probably a 60-40 split. So 60% of our customers are businesses. And we are currently developing certain functions in our platforms that actually have a great utility for businesses. For example, saving profiles of their employees, so that they can later use the same profiles to request a visa without inputting all the informations that they gave us before. Or, for example, allowing them to request a visa in bulk. So if they have certain profiles set up in the platform, they can just choose who is going to that trip, and after that they can, within a single click, request a visa for the same trip for multiple people. So that's what we are currently working on and developing with our platform. So
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for
circling back.
thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Sure. Sure, no worries. So circling back to your question, as you said, it's a family business. Visify was co-founded by me and my father, and he was working in what I call Visify 1.0. So he was running a visa agency in Bari, actually the first and the only. He opened that in 2010, 2011, something like that. And that happened because he lived for a brief period in Milan, because he was working with a partner of him on something unrelated. Actually, that retrospecting was very helpful, because he was working in the logistics sector, and now we use a lot of logistics, so it was propedeutic too, I would say. And his business partner in his Milan shop, he was offering this visa service, and my father was not aware that such a service existed. But he saw that there was a huge demand for that, and his partner was offering them that service, I would say, rather informally. So just as a additional service, let's put it that way. And so my father identified a market gap in our region in Bari. We're in the south of Italy, and so he opened his local-based offline visa agency.
Mhm.
And he was mainly working with people of this area and getting visas for several countries. So he got started, as I said, in 2010, 2011. And that's how we entered this business, because I came in later, because at that time I was still in high school. Yeah, I had just started high school. So yeah, afterwards I came in later, and we started Visify.
Before your father started his agency or company in Bari, was he where were people going in the region to get visa support? Were they going outside of the area, going up to Milan or to Rome or something?
Yeah, so basically, it and it's partly still like that for people that don't know this visa services. They Businesses and individuals actually used to go to travel agencies, because mostly for businesses, that's how they were organizing their business trips. So the travel agencies would get those kinds would help them get those kinds of visas, but it was rather an informal and unprofessional service. Other than that, probably some lawyers were already offering that service,
Mm,
probably. And actually, the do-it-yourself option still existed. So some people still require that visa on their own.
mhm.
And actually, because of some procedures, those people also needed to go to the embassy somewhere else in Italy, like Milan or Rome or other places.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, clearly there was a market gap. I mean, it's also really cool. I mean, your father clearly had sort of an entrepreneurial, tendency, I guess, because he saw a business that he understood was in demand, and he knew of the region that didn't have the supply, and he said, well, let's just get into the business, right? Let's get into the industry.
Correct, correct. And at that time, it was actually a tough period for our economy in general because it was post 2008. Because
Hmm.
in Italy and in Europe, we felt the hit a little bit later, and we had a huge economic crisis. So every sector was affected. So he was definitely trying to diversify and finding new businesses that were working at that time, and the visa business definitely was one of them.
That's awesome. That's cool. I love it. I love the kind of entrepreneurial beginnings of these, technology companies. Often, not often, but many times do start with something that's more analog, more manual, paperwork.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
kind of move
yeah,
into the 2.0 eventually, right?
yeah, yeah. He has been an entrepreneur since he was 18. So I definitely inherited some of this entrepreneurial vein because when I was young, I always used to go help my parents or my dad in their stores, in their shops, because they
Mm.
had other shops. So he has definitely been an example. I think I was actually a little bit born that way. I don't know. We can start a conversation now on whether entrepreneurs are born or made, but I think it's a little bit of the two.
Hmm.
And yeah, after I finished my university, I definitely wanted to do some entrepreneurial things, and that's how we got here.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that you studied, you went to high school, obviously, when your father started this
Yeah,
business, and then you went to university in multiple countries, including New York. You were in New York, I think you
yeah,
studied, right?
yeah,
So and I believe you studied international business, which sounds really perfect for what you're doing now.
yeah.
What led you to I guess study international business, and did you yeah, and why did you choose to kind of travel to different countries to get your education?
Yeah, so for sure. When I was in high school, actually, I was already studying something that we can call international business. And I've always been passionate about this. As I said, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, so I have always been interested in this kind of stuff, in business, in understanding how businesses work and stuff like that. And I found this amazing course, I would say a study program offered by the high school I was in, and I had some international experiences during high school. We did some exchanges with schools throughout Europe, and I definitely understood that I wanted to work somewhere across countries. So exactly like it happened with high school, when I was looking at university programs, I wanted to study somewhere else to get to know other cultures and live and study and work and make friends somewhere else.
Mhm.
So to be honest, I've never looked up anything in Italy. I said, okay, I want to study somewhere else, and
Wow.
afterwards it came. Actually, I found a good fit with the study program and the content and the requirements, which was a study program in Germany at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. And it was a strategic choice because I looked up the partners, and so I knew that I wanted to do an exchange. So they had a school in New York, so it was tactical. And then everything worked, and I started studying in Germany, and then I did some exchange semesters, one in New York and one in Paris.
Mhm.
And New York was amazing. It was a lifetime goal, so it was amazing studying there. And my major was finance, and I mean, New York is it's fantastic on that side. I had a lot of good professors, and the university actually had an actual trading floor, so it was really good. I've always been passionate about the finance side, so I definitely would have worked in finance if I hadn't started Visify.
Mhm.
So it was really really good to make friends all over the world, and get to know other cultures, and learn new languages and learn new markets. So yeah, it's been a blast.
And so did you have to, I mean, obviously we're speaking English. Did you have to learn any German? Did you have to learn any French when you were studying there? Or were the programs sort of in English and you got away with it?
Yeah, so for what concerns Germany, we were required to have some German knowledge. I already spoke some German, would say B1, B2, something like that. So I had that requirement, so to say. But I clearly improved my German while I was in Germany, because at a certain point I was also teaching German.
Oh,
Yeah, that's another story. But so yeah, definitely learned German. And when I was in France, French, it's always been the language that's closest to Italian, but that I speak not as good as the other languages, which is strange, right? Because you'd think, okay, it's so similar to your language, that's easy to pick it up. But I was actually always fighting when I was a kid with my French teacher in high school. So uh, I never wanted to study French, but I liked the language.
mm,
But then when I went to France, it was amazing, because in 4 months, it's probably been the fastest improvement in a language that I've had. And it was a pity that I could not stay more, because I would have probably become fluent in that language. So yeah, I had to know some German. I had to know some French. And yeah, after you learn German as an Italian, I would say it's easy to learn any other language,
okay.
probably. So yeah,
That's
that was
awesome.
easy.
So what's I just want to know quickly, what's the story about you teaching German in
Um,
Germany?
I found I when I was in Germany, I worked as an informal translator, because since I spoke German, there were a lot of Italians there that needed translations. Maybe because they were in the hospital and they could not speak German. Maybe because they had to do something bureaucratic. So yeah, I offered them help in that sense. And I don't know how, maybe on Facebook or something, somebody posted an ad that they needed help with a certain translation, and it actually was an actual company that needed help with some translation. And I got in contact with who wrote the post, and he actually was the CEO of this company, and he said, actually, we've already found someone for this role, but we're looking for someone to teach German to our students, because they had students that were learning German to go live in Germany. So yeah, I was hired, and I started working for them as a German teacher.
Wow.
And yeah, then moved on to build their marketing department, and I started working on a different department in handling their marketing. But I got started, yeah, this
So
way.
so that led into kind of a bigger role within that organization.
Yes, indeed, because um, I've, I've always been, messing around with technology and stuff like that, and digital marketing. It actually we also studied that at school, but yeah, you normally study marketing at school, but you don't really have an immediate toolbox that you can use. So you always have to do something on a side, and so I was full of side projects at that time, and yeah, they just said, okay, we saw your experience with all this stuff. Why don't you help us create our marketing department? And so yeah, I was leading their marketing department. We had some web developers, some specialists for Facebook ads or Google ads. So I was coordinating all of them, and that
Wow.
was really helpful actually, also for Visafy. So yeah, everything helps.
Right. Yeah. Everything. It's funny, right? You kind of start off, and when you're in a particular role, and you're at any given moment, you always question, well, is this going to be good for my future? And then 5 years, 7 years, however many years down the road, you can easily connect all the dots, of how everything helped you along the way, which is really cool. Okay, so
Yes.
I want to take just a quick pause and just for anyone watching live here with us, let us know where you are, who you are, say hello, where you're tuning in from. We do have one comment here from Nadim, says, apologies if I missed this, but how was your Visify idea born? So we kind of covered this a little bit, but we are going to get back to that. So Nadim, just hang tight, and we're definitely going to kind of revisit sort of the story of Visify 1.0 briefly, and then of course how the 2.0, which is the company that we are seeing and right now, how that was born. So thanks for your comment, Nadim, and definitely stick around for just a little bit, and we'll get to that. So okay, so Davide, you're in university around the world. You're teaching German. You're now doing digital marketing for this company where you went to teach German. You studied in Paris. You studied in New York. Um, I'm curious, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Because when you graduated, you didn't directly go into co-founding Visify with your father, right? I mean, you worked somewhere else in between after you graduated.
So I've co-founded Visify before actually finishing my studies. So
Oh, wow.
halfway, it was clear what I wanted to do. Let's
Hmm.
put it this way.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So your father was he ran a visa agency basically, in
Correct.
Body, where you guys are from and where you live, but in kind of a traditional one. You call them, you come in,
Yeah.
he helps with pay, whatever the business looked like. That was what you mentioned was Visify 1.0.
Yeah.
Now it wasn't called Visify back then, right? I'm assuming it had a more traditional name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, how did the idea come to you to say, like, I mean, look, you now lived in three of the greatest cities in the world. You probably had opportunities to work in any number of large companies or wherever around the world, but you came home and you kind of got into the business with your father. So what made you decide that? I mean, you said you launched it basically as you were before you even graduated. What made you decide to take that route versus kind of maybe the more quote unquote traditional job route first?
It was a bet that we still have to see if it was the right bet. But for the time being, it's fun at least. We have to see if that turns out to be the better choice, because when you're in business, it's a roulette. It's more like playing, because there are odds, and especially in the startup world, the odds are stacked against you. So we see at the end who was right. But yeah, in general, I took this bet, and I was living abroad, and I personally didn't know that this would have happened, because when I started studying in Germany, I actually ran away from Italy because there were a lot of things that I didn't like, and I said, I just want to be somewhere else. So everybody was, including me, surprised when I wanted to come back. um, but living abroad came to the realization that, if I wanted to be, if I wanted to do something, I needed to take the hardest route, Because if you take the hardest route first, then all the others are going to be much easier. So I chose to go back to Italy. Things changed, but we still have a huge gap with several countries in Europe and in the world because of the business scene and the business scene, the startup scene, and the amount of investments that there are here. But things are changing, and so I took a bet. If I had to take the choice today, probably it wouldn't be as risky because things change it in a while. But I felt like I wanted to go back and bring back home all the experience, all the tools, all the knowledge that I acquired abroad, and prove to people that you can do things here, because that's what I thought when I was a kid, and many people think that too, because you can't do stuff here, right? And so I wanted to prove those people, and I was one of those people. I wanted to prove them wrong, and tell them that we live in a wonderful country. We might be a little bit disadvantaged in some regards, but everybody and everything, if you look at countries or people, everybody has their own advantages and disadvantages, but opportunities are born when you focus on your advantages.
I'm curious to what are some of the disadvantages that maybe that you saw at the time? Because now potentially they could be seen as advantages. A small market can also be not a lot of competition or whatnot. But I'm curious, at that time, what were you thinking of in terms of being the disadvantages that you were originally kind of running away from?
Yeah. So probably it would be the entrepreneurial scene, because Italy has always been having this fragmented business scene, right? So starting a business without having a safe place to go for advice, or having a network that you can rely upon, it's harder in Italy. It's harder to have that kind of network if you don't know the right people. Let's put it this way.
Mhm.
It's easier to build that in countries like the US or Germany or France, because there's a lot more investments, and there's there are many people who are doing the same thing as you are. So it's easier to build a network of fellow entrepreneurs, people that have done what you're doing in the past. And when it comes to Italy, I would say it was harder than it is today.
Mhm.
But we still need to do some catch up to change this. So definitely, one of the disadvantages was that, although, and I was surprised at that time. This is interesting because it was an aspect that I could not convince myself of, because we're really entrepreneurial. Like every Italian is born entrepreneurial, I would say. Yet we were still missing a lot of entrepreneurial ventures, probably formal ventures. Because if you meet Italians, probably many people, although they're full time employees somewhere else, they have something going on in their life. I don't know, maybe even buying something at a lower price to sell it at a higher price informally, or doing some intermediation between two parties. So we're very entrepreneurial, but yet we probably miss the formal part, and even the awareness that things are possible. Because that's what I was angry about. That when I was in school, the school system and the teacher always, made you believe that things are this way and they will be this way because we've always done things in that way, and nothing much is gonna change.
Mhm.
So I could not be convinced that that was the right way to go, and we definitely needed to shake things up.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be part of that movement that brings innovation and I would say awareness, probably
Mhm.
because that's what we lack: awareness that we're capable, awareness that we don't have the means, but we can have them if we organize ourselves well, and if we start doing things.
So how did you convince your father? I mean, this is obviously it's inspirational and you clearly were driven by this idea of like making a bigger change. I mean, yes, to start a business, but making a broader macro level change within Italy, within the entrepreneurial sort of scene in your region and in your country. But how did you convince or did you have to convince your father that, like, hey, here's my idea. You have this business. It's a good business. It's a needed business. Let's actually upgrade to the 2.0 version. Let's build technology around it. Let's build a modern brand around it, etc. Like, how did that conversation go, and why did you decide to go that way versus starting a different business, on your own, for
Mhm.
example?
Mhm. I didn't have to convince him. It was very natural because I on I would say at that time I was working. Yes, but I was also working on a side for helping my father, and I was mainly helping him transition from being an offline-based visa agency to being a partially digitized visa agency. So we it was a natural. I would say we became aware that there was the way things had to develop. So we didn't simply just wake up and said, oh, okay, let's build this. No, we were already building that. um, to being honest with you. So I didn't have to convince him. It was a natural realization that things were going that way. And that was 2018. For all the people in America or somewhere else in the world, that was probably late. But Italy, it's always late when it comes to technology. Not always, but most of the time. And when it comes to small businesses, um, we as I said, we always need to play catch up. And it was late to realize things were heading that way. But in Italy, in this market, and actually still today, many things are offline based. And actually, we have sometimes a hard time explaining, some hard convinced Italians that they have to do things online. Because, for example, they call us and say, hey, I want to come to your office. It's not needed. Like, we're building this so that you don't have to come. And they're like, no, but we still want to come and meet you in person. um, and this mentality has, let's say, favored a lot of businesses that have not invested into digitizing their services.
Hmm.
So that's why. But to us, it became immediately clear that we needed to take this route. And as soon as we realized that we didn't need an office, we didn't need to meet people in person, and that we could automate the operations both for us and for our customers, that's how we started Visify.
Do you find that it's challenging, though, if your prospective clients, if their mindset is leaning towards seeing their service provider, their visa provider, et cetera, in person, do you now have to educate your clients and the market on the benefits of doing it virtually? Because I can imagine that if everyone's complaining that there's no virtual or digital service, easy, right? You guys, this is now what we offer. Everyone says, finally, this is what I've been waiting for, and everyone flocks to your service. However, it sounds like there are still some people who really want to come to your office, right? And you have to sort of first even educate them as to why you don't have an office before you can even sell them your service. So do you find that there's still a lot of people that want this? And do you guys have to do some sort of, I don't know if you call it like an educational campaign around the benefits of virtual versus in person?
I think this we have to look at from different sides. I think the first side is trust. And I would say that trust, it does not depend on whether you meet in person or not, right? So most of the people in Italy, they don't lack uh, trust in digital. They lack trust in the person they have in front of them.
Hmm.
So you cannot educate people on trust, because trust is, it's a gut feeling. But you can use the digital tools to gain the trust of your customer. Because if it's the first time that we meet and we talk, definitely they might be scared that there's not going to be a lot of involvement from our side in helping them. But what we do is simply proving them that being digitally based, we can actually be more present than we could be in person. So that's a matter of trust, and it's not about educating them. It's more about showing them that they can have a better service and a better value if they use our service.
Hmm.
And the other side that we have to look at, and that's a fact. I'm very sensible to this because I have a good friend of mine who's having a startup about this. It's about the digital skills. He's really into the silver economy, and in Italy we have a problem, which is that we're not making enough children, right? So we have a very older population, and this problem is only going to get worse. So the older the population, the less digital knowledge there is,
Hmm.
right? So most of the time, even though people are willing to use our service, they might lack some basic tools that they need. For example, a credit card, and it's happened. It's a happy story because once we gain the trust of our customers, we guide them throughout these processes. So, for example, we help them open a bank account, right? We say, hey, use this bank account. You can get a card in 2 days, and you can pay us, for example, and they do. So we gain their full trust, and we don't have to educate them. As I said, once you have the trust, you can jump into helping them with the tools needed. And that's nice because once they discover that they can have these services, probably they were even unaware. Once they discover that, it's easy if they want to be served again, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, as I would say, we have some fundamental problems. So it's not only the mentality. We have some fundamental problems, but the good things is that things have changed. We started in 2018. It was much harder then than it is now because after we've had COVID, things completely changed. Italians started discovering remote working. They started discovering digital services, and today we don't have this problem so often as we used to have in the past.
Hmm.
So things have completely changed, both for Italy and the rest of the world, but
That's
especially
amazing.
for Italy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's yeah. If you, I can imagine you're going to try to work with a client, and they said, "Look, I'd love to work with you, but I can't even pay you. I don't have the
Right.
right credit card or something." So
Right.
you have to backtrack and say, "Okay, let me help you set up a credit card."
Yeah.
But
But Roman, these are like very limited instances,
right.
and it's mainly in the B2C. What led our innovation and our digitization was the B2B,
Mm,
because even back then, that's why I said before that we slowly realized that that was the way to go. Businesses said, "Hey, I don't want to come to your office. Can we do this remotely?" And I think that when you're short on time, and businesses are always short on time, it's much more convenient for you to use a digital service. And we mainly have these problems in the B2C. When people are not okay with technology and stuff like that, but they have to be nowadays. But businesses are already okay with it, and actually they they hate the offline.
that's right.
So yeah, it happens only in the B2C, but even there, we are actually developing a clientele that actually is very much at comfort with technology, and that's where we really can add value for them.
So, two questions for you. Number one, I'm curious, both, let's just say from the business side, who is your ideal client? Like, who is it that you serve? Because it sounds like you're working with Italy based businesses, even if they're
Yeah.
international or they're local, who are sending individuals overseas. So, like, can you talk a little bit about how do you support businesses? Like, who are those businesses? And then how do you sort of support them through the Visify platform?
Right. So our ideal customer is an Italian business with relationships abroad. That might mean that they have clients abroad. It might mean that they take part at international fairs, and in general, yeah, as I said, with international relationships. As I said, most of the businesses are completely okay with a digital service. So every business technically that gets to us, and to get to us, they've seen our website and seen what we do. It's an immediate click, right? They know that we can serve them online, and we can be quicker than anybody else, and be present there at any time to solve their issues. Easy. For what concerns the business to consumer side, we our ideal customer is somebody who's um, super comfortable with technology, is used to digital services, especially if they require sensible data and information to be shared with the other party. People that are okay, using basic tools like WhatsApp, email, web applications. That's our ideal customer. And we are actually having a lot of them because we have some partnerships right now going on at the moment, and we identified certain partners whose audience resonates with what we do and our services. So that's where the magic happens, when there's a fit on how people expect to be served, and when they discover a product, it's an immediate fit.
So how does so okay, I'm a business, I'm Italian-based business. I want to send an employee to international conference just to
Right.
speak or to whatever, or maybe to see a client, do a client visit. So the idea here is that you're not helping them relocate employees to an office in another country. You're more so helping them with maybe a business tourist visa, or as we said earlier, a non-immigrant visa. So how does it work for the company? I mean, do they log in and then they put up in, they express what they need, and then you suggest a visa type? Like, what I'm just trying to picture,
Yeah.
and for the listeners too, if I'm an Italian business, what can I expect?
Yeah, yeah. As you said, Rowan, we are mainly focused right now on non-immigrant visas, but we don't exclude the possibility in the future of using our platform for immigrant visas. But right now, what we're trying to author is a completely digital service, so that businesses can simply, if they don't have a profile with us, if they've never worked with us, they simply go to a website, they fill a simple form where they say, okay, I have n people that would like to go to the US because of this reason. And the US is just an example, it might be any other country in the world. And they sent us a simple informal request. We inspect this request and we tell them, hey, you need to get this visa. If you want to proceed and use our service, please create a profile on the platform. And then they sign up for the platform. Once they're in the platform, they're going to be able to see all the steps required to get that visa.
Mhm.
If this is the first time they work with us, that's how it works. If it's the second time they work with us, they already have provided us with all the data needed for all the data concerning their employees and concerning their business. So they simply reuse that data very easily. They say, okay, these people 1, 2, 3, they go to this country from this day to this day. Tell me what visa is needed. We tell them, and once we have an association between the visa and the visa request, they can proceed automatically because they see all the steps needed to get the visa. So for example, upload this document, fill out this form, do this, do that, and the procedure is done.
And so, how do because I'm thinking from my perspective as an immigration lawyer, um, do you have to you have to look up all the requirements for all the different visa types, and do you work with sort of maybe partners or something on the ground in the different destination countries to make sure that your process is correct, or how like. And I'm challenging you on this because my first thought is, well, how do I know as a company that if I follow your process, it's correct, and I'm not going to show up at the airport and they're like, sorry, you missed a form or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So we have several ways to cope with this. The most technological one is obtaining information automatically from government websites.
Hmm.
So we have certain websites that for which we receive alerts when things change on those procedures, right? So we are automatically alerted when things change. Also, we work with local partners, which are very close to the respective embassies, that are basically the last step before the embassy. So every time something changes, they either know even before our technology picks up because of the informal talks
Hmm.
going on. And so every time we know that things have changed and we have to follow a different procedure, right? So we on that side, there's also an important offline component that we definitely use for our services, as well as an automated um, control of the things that change on the governmental websites.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's good to know, right? Because I think that's always one of the big questions in this type of line of work is to make sure that when you're using a service, you know that you're, using a service that's updated, that has requirements all checked off, things like that. So now my question is, or sort of another question I think that would be really interesting is, um, how do you serve individuals? Because of course, from a business relationship, great, they'll probably have people traveling over and over. But you also have a B2C business too. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just thinking like if I was an individual, is it me trying to travel and see my cousin in, you know, in Mexico, or is it like, yeah, or is it something, what are the B2C kind of examples that you work with?
Yeah. So in for what concerns the B2C, the main reasons people travel is either for tourism or for study purposes,
Hmm.
studying abroad. And we've worked with many universities to help mainly Italian, but not only Italians, Italian students and also people studying in Italy but with another nationality go study somewhere else. And that could be several types of study. There could be a cultural exchange, there might be a university exchange, or there might also be a period abroad. So in Italy, for example, we have Education First, for example. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they organize a lot of trips around the world for very young students. So maybe even before they go to high school, so they can spend a period in the summer somewhere else in the U.S., in the U.K., so that they can learn the language. And yeah, that's also part of the study. And also we support some familiar family visas for family-based reasons,
Hmm.
but mainly I would say it's for tourism and studying purposes.
Yeah. And what do you think are, looking ahead, what's your goal? I mean, obviously the company's still, startup. I mean, you guys are growing and expanding. From what you can share, what are your goals in terms of expanding the platform, the technology, and then maybe the services even?
So we want to become the top service for visas in the world, because we are expanding right now in other countries. Right now, we are very much focused on the Italian market, but we're going international in 2022. So we're bringing this platform to other countries, and we want to give the best top-notch service, especially for businesses, because we want to give them a, I would say, not something that resonates with how the world is in 2022, because uh, uh, there's a lot of services around the world that handle business travel,
Hmm.
and everything is digitized, and people are always even adopting everyday in their everyday, they have many services that they use, from business travel reporting to business travel organization, business travel monitoring, but they lack a central service that can offer visas, a single platform that can offer visa for all of the countries and destinations. So we would like to be in that market gap and help businesses have a reliable organization that can help them in a digital way get visas no matter their destination and no matter the reason why. Clearly, that reflects also in the B2C, because we want to have uh, customers that know that once they come to our website, no matter where they go, no matter the reason of their trip, they can request a visa digitally with us, and they can be guided through all the steps needed. And to do so, we're also investing hugely on automation, meaning that we want to take the human part out as much as we can, so that it's going to be immediate, it's going to be much quicker, and it's going to be much more simple just to come on a website, inputting the information, and once our algorithm is going to be able to understand what's going on, even with the situation of the customer and all the requirements needed for that country, the algorithm can immediately say, hey, this is the visa you need based on the fit of the country requirements and what you have, and also based on how past applicants performed when applying for this visa.
Mm.
So we want to combine the twos in a technological solution, so that's going to be much easier for the people to request a visa. And that's why, as I said, it's going to be a strategic move also to offer the service in the immigrant business. So for those visas that are much more discretionary than non-immigrant visas.
Hmm. Yeah, especially a short-term business travel versus, because you could have a non-immigrant visa that is person moves for 6 years or 3 years or whatnot versus 2 weeks, for a conference. So,
Right.
and those typically, as far as I know, require a little bit more information, a little bit more documentation, because you
Right.
are getting a right to work, or maybe you're staying for a longer period of time, and so the
Exactly.
government has more requirements. That's awesome. That's really really cool, and it's also interesting. Do you do anything inbound into Italy, or
Yes.
is it all
Yes.
out? Yeah.
Yeah. We also do some inbound. I would say probably only 10% of the visa that we handle are incoming, mostly outgoing. Yeah.
And is that just because there's not a lot of demand, or is it, I don't know, it's just a different type of service? Because the reason I ask this is because it's hard, because you're in Italy, and so you have access to the most up-to-date requirements. You know how the consulates work, you know how the embassies work. Um, it's hard to know that from here, or from Canada, or from England,
Right.
or wherever. And so I would think that, you guys would be prime to be the inbound agents, the inbound immigration service as well, for companies trying to send their employees over to Italy, or whatnot. I'm just curious. I mean, do you see the kind of demand for that, or is it really more so the demand for outgoing immigration work?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. For what concerns incoming, we still serve Italian customers. As I said, we are based in Italy right now and mainly serving the Italian market. So that means that when we have a request for an incoming person, the request normally comes from somebody based in Italy who's inviting this person,
Mm.
right? So that's why when we serve the Italian market, we are mainly focused on serving the Italians who want to go abroad, and that's one factor. The other factor is that that happens in the B2C market, and as I said, the B2C, it's a slightly smaller part of our clientele, and you should also consider the fact that we are in the EU. So most of the visas are unified across the EU, right? So if an Italian wants to go to the US, he or she has to require a visa. if he or she wants to go to Canada, has to require a visa. Although they're very close to each other, but if you want to go to one of those countries, you're gonna need to request a visa for each and every one of those countries. Whereas on the opposite, if you want to come to Europe, doesn't matter where you go. Uh, you don't have to require a visa, because normally that works that when countries have an agreement, it's not that much anymore Italy versus the US, but it's Italy making a an agreement with the whole European Union,
Mhm.
right? And so European Union has been very much keen on simplifying those procedures, and most of the countries are uh, can enter Europe visa free. Of course, that depends on the countries, but like the many countries, for example, if you have a look at the two sides, if an Italian wants to go to US, he or she has to require a visa, but if an American wants to come to Italy, he or she does not have to apply for a visa. So
Right.
that's also, I think, a key factor that plays a huge role.
That makes sense. Yeah, because with ESTA and things like that, people can just go. I mean, where
Right.
an American passport is a from that perspective has some benefits of not requiring a visa application. And I will say this as a side note, it's especially for immigration professionals based out of the U.S. We don't realize sometimes how easy we have it. We can really go into many countries around the world without having to go through this whole visa process and all the questionnaires and show me your bank statements, and we just show up. Sometimes we have to pay money, but we just
Yeah.
show up. And many people, even to come as a visitor from all around the world, have to apply and sometimes get rejected, and it's much harder. So just a good reminder. I'm curious, as we kind of wrap up here. I'm curious. You launched Visify 2.0. You're building up the technology and the infrastructure, and then of course COVID hits in early 2020. And what I've seen over the past couple of years is that businesses in our industry have sort of gone in multiple directions. I mean, some have just barely survived, and others have done really well. And there's all sorts of situations. I'm just curious, what did you see in terms of how COVID impacted your business, or maybe just the industry more generally within Italy?
It was a huge hit, clearly,
Yeah.
that cannot be hidden. But it was also a very positive time for us, because that allowed us to do two things: either diversify and acquire new customers, because in that time we had an entirely new market. Because we had a very restricted amount of people who were allowed to travel, but had to go through a lot more, um, a lot more bureaucratic procedures.
Mhm.
So during that time, there was a new market creation, because people traveling from Italy to certain countries where a visa was not required in normal times, they started needing to do a certain procedure to enter that country. So we acquired more customers, because they were going to those countries that they could go without a visa before, but they needed to go to do some procedures before. So it was good, because we acquired some new customers that later needed to apply for a visa for countries where a visa is required. So there was good for us, and at the same time, it allowed us, in general, I would say, not only on a business level, just to step out from our daily lives, and take the time to improve our operations, and improve our technology. So we had much more time to sharpen our saw, and improve all the tools that we use on a daily basis to provide our services.
Mhm.
um, we cannot hide the fact that it was tough, because our revenues were severely hit by this, and also because Italy, has always been very restrictive, and I would say, fortunately, because we've been actually the first country in Europe, and probably after China, that was severely hit by COVID.
Yeah.
So it's always been restrictive in their measures. So not allowing people into Italy, and not allowing people to travel abroad. Like for example, at the end of the last year, many countries were open, but people could not travel because Italy had a law that said you cannot go to those countries unless there's an emergency or all the reasons that were famous during COVID, right?
Mhm.
So it was particularly tough, but I'm very confident that things are changing. Actually, I was reading that they have just approved the roadmap of the exit from COVID, and I'm so happy because looking at different countries, for example, the UK. The UK has had a very laissez-faire way of acting during COVID, which was not so good because there was some periods when the UK was severely hit. But they always had a roadmap in mind, which was actually they released it very early, and they were committed to respecting those deadlines. Whereas Italy has never had them. They've always had a wait and see approach, right? We said, okay, let's better be better safe than sorry. So let's play it safe. Let's have everything closed, and that had a huge impact on the economy, right? But at the same time, preserving the capacity of hospitals and stuff like that. But today, things are changing because they have approved this law that basically says that we're gonna, for example, stop wearing masks on until I think 1st of May.
Mm.
We're gonna be without masks in closed public spaces. So yeah, definitely things are changing, but things have been tough, particularly for Italy.
Yeah, yeah. You guys, Italy was hit, like you said. I think after China was one of the largest epicenters, and then of course it moved over to New York, and we were hit very severely too.
That's at
Um,
least what we know,
right,
because they found out in some tests from September 2019 that there were already some people who would have tested positive for COVID. So let's say, from what we know, we
that's
were the second country, but maybe it's not the actual truth, so we
right.
don't know.
No, that's true. That there's still a lot that we're going to be uncovering, and to your point, I mean, it's good. It is interesting to see how COVID has impacted this entire industry. On the one hand, it hurt a lot of businesses, unfortunately. Although some of those businesses, if they were able to stay afloat, have had this time to reflect and retool and all that. That number one, but number two, it also pushed a lot more people into the digital era
Exactly.
because we couldn't meet
Yeah.
in person. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't meet in person. And so now, all of a sudden, the businesses that were capable of actually of providing a service remotely were winning in a way.
Correct. That
Um,
was our case because we,
yeah,
we, we had a competitive advantage back then because people started to organize their business processes to offer their services online. We have been doing that since our foundation, so it
right.
was a perfect fit. And as I said, it also changed the mentality of our customers, which now expect to be served digitally.
Yeah, and I think it's here to stay. If you ask me, I think this digital
It
approach is
is.
here to stay.
It is. It is. It is.
It's cool because you think about all the conferences that people couldn't go to and all the events, and sort of we yearn to go and see our friends again and hug our loved ones and all that. But with our service providers, we're like, yeah, maybe I don't need to come into your office. Maybe
Right.
I will save the hour back and forth and talk to you on the phone or on Zoom or wherever. It's not that I don't want to see anybody in person. I do. I just maybe I don't need to see you. And so I think this is and frankly, a lot of service providers don't want to go into their office just to have someone else meet them at their office. It just isn't as effective or efficient. So I
Correct.
hope that from this perspective, we will come out with a net positive, in terms of digitization and just the use of technology smartly.
Yeah, it would be good to have a choice, right? For all those services that were traditionally offline based, it's good today to have at least choice of saying, I want to be served digitally, right? So, and I'm especially talking about the state in Italy because we've been actually probably the most offline based state. No, probably that's not a good description, but we've been severely, I would say, drastically based on offline, but things have started to change. And
Yeah.
if things have started to change with the Italian state, I have good hopes the world is actually changing.
Yeah, that's right. um, that's awesome. And Davide, thank you so much. I'm curious. I kind of try to end these conversations with something maybe, more lighthearted and maybe less business oriented. I love to ask people, especially those who sort of lived around the world. Um, you've lived in many countries, you've studied in many countries and cities. Um, did you ever have any sort of like kind of moments internationally, whether or where something happens and it was like a close call and it's a story that you would never forget that you can share,
Ah,
you know?
so many. Um, I definitely have one. It was in New York. It was a funny coincidence. But it was actually my second day in New York. I was in Chelsea Market, and in Chelsea Market, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a shop. It was Giovanni Rana, who's a famous Italian guy for his pasta, and there was a shop here in Chelsea Market, and I I ordered some pasta, and I went to the checkout, and I was paying, right? And we were a group of international people. So the people at the checkout, she said, "Oh, you guys are international. Where you guys are from?" And everybody started saying, "Germany, Switzerland, Italy." And she said, "Oh wow, I have my family comes from Italy, from southern Italy." I said, "Oh wow, I'm from southern Italy," and in the while I gave them my credit card, and I was like, "Yeah, where were they from?" And she said like they were from Bari. I was like, "Okay, I'm from Bari too." What was their surname? And she was like, she said Lionetti, but it was the first time I heard my surname pronounced by an American.
Hmm.
So I didn't recognize it was my actual surname. So I said, that doesn't ring a bell. Like, can you say it again? And she said Leonetti, and I'll say, hey, look at your credit card, and it was my name written on it, right? So it was
Wow.
a huge coincidence. Like what on earth? So it was very funny, and I deeply believe in science, and but sometimes when I encounter these coincidences, I always interpret them as it's such a huge coincidence that maybe it's some greater entity telling
Mm.
you where you are right now is the perfect place to be.
Yeah, I love
So
that. Wow. Wait, and did this person end up being some sort of maybe a distant cousin or something, maybe? Or yeah.
I don't know why we never exchange our contacts because it was very busy, a busy day in
Yeah.
New York. So we just paid and said, okay, hi, bye bye. And then when I came back, she was not there anymore. So we never kept in
Wow.
contact. So it's actually one of those things, that it was there just to prove you that there was a coincidence, and then after that you have no chance of digging in more. It was just a singular
Wow.
sign, and then no chance on following up on that.
Man, I know. I've had those moments too, and you always think back and you're like, but what if I should have just taken the email or just taken the phone number? It would have been, and you didn't do it, and
Right,
I guess you'll never
right,
know.
right.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember. I have a blackout of after that moment what happened, because I would have definitely loved to know more, but it didn't happen. I don't know why,
Wow.
but
Well,
yeah, a
hey,
funny coincidence.
if that person is listening, now you know where to find Davide.
Right.
Your contact information is will be in the notes, in the show notes.
Yeah,
That's so
definitely.
crazy. That's so cool. I bet you it was a family member, even if a distant one. Like, wow, what a coincidence to meet in Chelsea Market like that. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Davide, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your background and sharing about what you guys are building at Visify. It sounds really exciting, and I wish you all the best. And I think more generally, I am excited for the momentum that you're hopefully building within Italy more broadly around entrepreneurship and maybe investment, maybe the startup scene. I mean, you're clearly at a co-working space, and so keep it going. And I think only good things will will come from that, hopefully.
Thanks a lot, Roman. I'm pretty confident things will ramp up, and especially now that COVID, hopefully it's finishing. And yeah, for if I can be helpful to anybody listening, if they want to connect, or if I can help them if they're starting a startup, either on in this field or somewhere else, or if that can help them in any other way, or if there's anybody interested in discussing more about Visify and maybe even investing, since we are raising funds right now, I would be
Okay.
more than glad to connect. They can find me here on LinkedIn. Maybe you have tagged me on this post, or on the major platforms like Instagram, for example. Davide Lionetti, it's my username there. So you're more than welcome to contact me, and I wish you the same for your entrepreneurial venture. Hoping that it's gonna pick up again after COVID. I think it's doing well anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain. It's as you said, with the technology forcing clients to adopt, or sorry, with COVID forcing clients to adopt more technology.
Amazing,
Um,
amazing. So
being
wishing you to
Thank you,
enlarge things even more.
thank you, awesome. Thank you, David. I appreciate you,
Thanks for
man.
having me.
Yeah,
Thanks
of
for
course.
having me, Roman. Pleasure to be here.
Great show. Really great conversation. It's so cool to learn about all the different immigration technology companies and services that are popping up around the world. For folks who are here with us today live, thank you so much for being here, and for listening and for tuning in. This will be the last show before the conference in a couple of weeks. So next Friday, no show, and the Friday after that is the GMI CON 2022, which is a digital marketing conference for immigration lawyers and businesses around the world, in the US and around the world. So see you in April. And as always, thank you and peace out.